Hey, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co, and this is news and week in review along with some giveaway winners. There's a bunch of things to get into, as usual. News, week in review, the topics of the week, the games I played. Of course, we have some movie reviews at the end, but this week, something different than a usual week is we have a bunch of giveaway winners to announce. Basically, over on my channel, if you missed it already, I don't know how, I've talked about it 7,000 times by now, but I've been running a support drive for the channel, an end of the year support drive, where basically I'm raising money for the channel. And to that end, I had a whole video. You could enter to a giveaway. There are a bunch of games being given away. There's Ko-Fi and Patreon and YouTube memberships, and you could enter just by supporting the channel any way you wanted, or even just by commenting. And to that end, we have the giveaway winners. And so, a little complicated before we get into it, but for the details, I guess, the details to get into, and number one is the original giveaway was going to be for Oathsworn All-In, Zombicide Undead or Alive All-In, and Master of the Universe All-In. From there, I also was like, hey, by the way, the giveaway is doing really well, the support drive is doing really well, so if we get to $5,000, we'll give away a bunch more games. And we didn't get to $5,000, but we did get more, so I'm going to give away some more. Basically, I offered to give away Clash of Cultures New and Shrink Deluxe Edition, whatever it is, as well as Too Many Bones Unbreakable, League of Dungeoneers, and some metal dice. And we didn't get to 5,000, so I'm not going to do the Too Many Bones Unbreakable or Clash of Cultures, at least for now. If we do hit $5,000 in the next month, I'm going to give it a full another month, then I'll give those two away. And if we don't, then that's fine, and I won't, at least for now, but I'll save them for something in the future. I figure there's an opportunity somewhere, sometime, somehow. But to that end, that means we're giving away 5 things today. We're giving an Oathsworn All-In, we're giving a Master of the Universe, Zombicide Undead or Alive, League of Dungeoneers, and some Too Many Bones or Hoplomachus metal dice. That's not an or, it's Hoplomachus metal dice. It's not Too Many Bones metal dice. You'll be very disappointed if you're getting them for Too Many Bones. And to that end, the giveaway winners are as follows. We actually have, for fun facts, we have 2 of the winners who are over on Ko-Fi. Specifically, Zombicide Undead or Alive was only being given away over on Ko-Fi, so that one was only for Ko-Fi. The others were either way. I just put everything into a pot. I put every dollar of support equaled an entry, and then if you commented, you also got an entry. And to that end, we have 1 person who won just from the comments alone. So we got 1 person who did win from the comments. We had 2 people over on Patreon. We had 2 from Ko-Fi, although again, one of them was only for Ko-Fi. And to that end, here are the giveaway winners. And a general reminder, as always, do not reply to anyone in the comments who says you won and asks you to send the money on Telegram or PayPal or whatever it is. Any and all communication about your win, I might comment on the 1 person who commented. The rest I'll probably reach out to because I have their info. Oh, and no YouTube members won, unfortunately. But that's also because there's only like 25, 30 of you, so there's a very small number, which I appreciate, you make no mistake, but the odds were against you just from the larger pool of things. Anyways, but yeah, going back to the Patreon things, any degree of winning or communication around winning, especially if it involves any exchange of money, should only come from alex@boardgameco.com, and any exchange of money is only relevant if you are an international buyer and we're paying for shipping. Anything else, and you're all covered. Anyways, with that, let's go through the winners. Let's start from the bottom up over here. Starting from the bottom up, we have the Hoplomachus metal dice. These were won by a Patreon member whose name is Fred from Sneaky Lab Games, I assume. I don't have your full name, Fred, but I will reach out directly. So Fred, you'll be getting this. Well, the Hoplomachus metal dice. That's what I mean by this. Then we have League of Dungeoneers. League of Dungeoneers was a commenter. The commenter won League of Dungeoneers. That's Daniel Teicher. That's funny. Sounds like Tiger, Daniel Tiger, but it's Daniel. I don't know how to pronounce it because it's T-I-E-C-H-E-R. I'd say Teicher, but it's probably Teicher or Teicher. But Daniel, you won. I will be responding to your comment, and hopefully you reply back or engage. But again, email me at alex@boardgameco.com. In fact, if any of you are winners, I will be reaching out to you directly, especially on Patreon and Ko-Fi, because I have your contact. But if you don't hear from me for some reason, please email me. I hope to get these into your hands. Then we have the Master of the Universe. Master of the Universe was a Patreon winner. The first one was, Fred was a Patreon winner. So the first one, the Hoplomachus dice was Patreon. League of Dungeoneers was a YouTube commenter. The third one was again a Patreon. We have Master of the Universe, I apologize. Master of the Universe was won by Josh Beischer, B-E-I-S-C-H-E-R. Again, don't know how to pronounce the last name. Beischer, Josh Beischer, you won Masters of the Universe. Zombicide Undead or Alive, this was the dedicated Ko-Fi entry only. That was won by Stephen James over on Ko-Fi. Do I know you, Stephen? Stephen, do I? Huh. I think I text Stephen on an occasional basis. I mean, again, either way. I'm just recognizing I only realize this. I have the names written down on my sheet of paper attached to the camera, but I think I know Steven. So either way, that's Zombicide Undead or Alive, won by Steven James. And then we have the Oathsworn All In. The Oathsworn All In, another Ko-Fi winner. That's won by Christopher Dick. And so that's overall what we have over here. Oh, I think I know I recognize Steven James. I don't think I texted you. I think you've just been a Ko-Fi member for a very long time. I think. Anyways, that is basically what we have for the winners. So congratulations to all the winners, and rest assured there'll be more giveaways on the channel at various points in time. I am starting to run regular giveaways over on my Instagram as well, so make sure to go ahead and follow that. Regular is a variable term. I'm running more giveaways over on Instagram. I ran 2 a few weeks ago. I'll be running more. I have a bunch of games, like a stack, like 6 or 7 games that will be slowly given away over on Instagram. I think for the most part, like the bigger box experiences, I'm probably going to save for like support drive type stuff, and the individual, hey, here's a game that you want to get a $30, $40 game. Those will probably be more Instagram giveaways in general. And with that, we can finally start the week in review. Thank you so much. By the way, thank you to everyone. Thank you tremendously to everyone. As far as I'm concerned, the support drive has been incredibly successful and helpful to the channel, to myself. I appreciate it. That's what it comes down to. I appreciate your support. And with that, let's go ahead and start off this video. I guess continue this video. News and week in review. We're going to go ahead and go to the news part over here. And starting off, we have Steamforged Games and Lucky Duck. They have a distribution partnership, which makes sense. Lucky Duck does a lot of these types of distribution partnership. They manage a lot of international, well, anything and everything. And so they're working together with Steamforged Games. So that's good for both those companies, I assume. We have over here, we have Board Game Geek Insider. They had a podcast about, they have a they had a article on Board Game Geek around how there's a podcast with oh my gosh, I'm gonna blank on all the names, but Portal Games, oh my gosh, Ignacy Trezut, I don't know how to pronounce your last name, Ignacy Trezruka, I don't know how to pronounce the last name, Corey Thompson and Stephen Monaker, 3 industry veterans with different degrees of experience and knowledge around the board game space, different degrees of the roles they play. They run a podcast. So in case you're interested in that kind of information, if you are someone in the industry, this is likely something worth listening to, and if you're just a curious board game player who wants to hear fun little stories from people who've been around for a long time, this is worth listening to. But also, one of these I want to talk about this today, is when Board Game Geek ran this article, there were a lot of people who are like, Ignacy should not be on the podcast, he should be delivering our games of Robinson Crusoe. And to that, I will say 2 things. I'll say 17 things, we know me. I understand people who are frustrated that Robinson Crusoe is incredibly delayed. I back that thing. I'm right there with you. Like, I paid money for that. Like, I do get copies of games from publishers, but Robinson Crusoe All In, I back that. I don't even think I did All In. I was a little selective. I spent like a few $100s, though, on Robinson Crusoe. So I'm right there with you on the delay aspect. But it's not like Ignacy is going to be like, packaging the games himself. Like him being on a podcast is not going to be a factor in this game being delayed. People do, and I know it's frustrating. I do. This is why I said 2 things, because I really meant 2 sides. Side 1 is understand that Ignacy having a life and doing other things and things that are good for his business. This is good for his business and his image. This is just running the day-to-day operations to a degree with a podcast. People have lives and they have to do other things, and the world doesn't stop just because they owe you something. And that's the second half, which is, yes, they do owe you something. That is true. I've been in this position myself. If you've ever bought or traded games with Board Game Co., and if you've ever been on the receiving end of damaged games that you're waiting for me to deal with, it's frustrating. I get that. And I don't say that to you like, oh, I get a free pass. No, it's frustrating. It's frustrating. It's annoying. And it's complicated in this world of crowdfunding in general, where frequently you have people who have your money and then they go live their lives and you're like, you owe me the thing, give me the thing, and you're like, how could you live your life? And both things are true. They have to live their lives. People have to live the lives, and it's so complicated. This is not to say that like they shouldn't live lives. It's not to say that you don't have a right to be upset. This is just a complicated issue. When people owe you something, it is important that they follow through and deliver, and it's important. And again, that includes me and anything I've ever owed someone. Just this past week, by the way, I had someone reach out who I owed money from a Board Game Co. transaction from, I don't know, a year and a half ago, and he just reached out. He's like, I never got paid for this, and I paid him for it because I never paid him for it. So you have to make good. You have to make good on anything you owe people. That's for sure. I'm not taking away from that. Whether it's me, whether it's Ignacy, whether it's somebody else. But there is a complicated balance where those people are allowed to live their lives too. I am not saying that Ignacy doesn't owe you anything. I'm not saying that Portal Games doesn't owe you anything. But like, what's the expectation? That he doesn't have a podcast? That he doesn't engage in the board game space? That he doesn't go to convention? That he doesn't print the next board game? It's a complicated conversation, and I don't have an easy answer because I don't think it makes sense to expect somebody to not do things in life. But I also understand that you're like, why are you in my face doing your thing? It's complicated. It's complicated. So just perspective. I'm not even, I don't even know if I'm upset. I'm just perspective. That's all I'm here for. So yeah, there's that. But moving on, we have other stuff over here to talk about with our less, whatever. We have over here top 10 solo games of 2023 with MVM and the solo community. This Jeremy Howard ran a top 10 solo games. He does this kind of thing every year where he has his list, but he also loops in community members. So if you watch this video, you'll see many people, myself included, jumping in for 30, 40 seconds to talk about their favorite solo game of the year. So you're getting a whole bunch of Jeremy's and then everyone else's number one. So if you wanted a video where you want to see everyone's number one pick, I mean, this is what you're getting. You're getting a bunch of Jeremy's picks and then a whole lot of number one picks from everybody else. And then we have over here, we have Board Game Wire talking about Facebook bans for our award-winning Votes for Women board game. Basically on Kickstarter, there's a Votes for Women is currently running a campaign, and Facebook has, not been running ads because claiming it's a sensitive social issue. Now, this is complicated. I recommend going through the article. Things like this are inherently complicated, but ultimately I think that Board Game Wire and the Votes for Women people are doing the right thing with this, which is they're facing an obstacle that's in their way, and they're turning that obstacle, the obstacle that's stopping them from advertise, they are turning that obstacle into an advertisement by having this article on, 7 different sites and having me talk about it. So this is good press for them because of a bad press issue. Again, the only reason I say it's complicated is I don't know enough about what's going on Facebook's side of why, I don't know enough what's happening. It does seem stupid what Facebook is doing, but ultimately I'm happy that they Votes for Women people. I'm happy that they're turning it into free press. I'm happy that they're being able to leverage this to be able to get possibly even more awareness than their ads would have on their own. So if you are interested in Votes for Women, it is a highly rated game on Board Game Geek. Feel free to check it out on their Kickstarter, and there you go. That's your free press for Votes for Women. Then we have over here, on Twitter, Lunanova announced that they are taking the rights for junk art. Basically, this is from Chris. No, why am I blank? Oh my gosh, it's right here. It's right, Jay. I was gonna say Chris Cormier, but it's Jay Cormier. There is a Chris Cormier. That's why I did that. This whole thing. I remember the time that Tom Vassell called me Alex Randolph because as a game designer, Alex Randolph. There's a thing. So that kind of thing does happen. So Jay, I'm sorry. But Jay Cormier, as well as Senfung Lim, they designed Junk Art, which is a stacking game, a fairly popular stacking game, and looks like Lunanova picked up the rights for that one. So if you're interested in Junk Art, it's coming back. Also, why is my Twitter... I don't know, I guess he's just reposting. Either way, that's going to be Junk Art over there. Then we have over here, we have Lorcana Championship starting sets, announcements, and OP play and all these things. There's a bunch of articles. Lorcana basically released a bunch of information around the various, the various plans for the organized play, for championships, for things like that. So if you are a Lorcana player, if you are interested in learning more, leaning into that, I'll have a link to this down below, and there's a bunch of other sites and articles talking about this. I'm not going to heavily go into myself because, it's a lot of information. It's just a lot of information to go through about, the championships and the this and that, and many of you aren't necessarily interested in this, so it's here in case you want to see the link to that. And then we have over here, we have Goliath acquiring Funko Games. This is a big deal. There's an article on Board Game Geek, again on 5 other sites too, but basically Goliath acquired Funko Games. Now, I don't know a lot about Goliath myself. I do know that Goliath... They seem to have done something with Elf Creek as well as Fire Tower, because Fire Tower, I know that Fire Tower and Honeybuzz both got the Goliath name on those boxes. So in some way, Goliath is involved in something, whether distribution, rights, I don't know exactly the details. So it was a big deal for me to see that they acquired Funko, which Funko Games is a large company. They have the whole Prosper Hall development team, although that's complicated because that's a rotating team and a lot of people aren't there anymore, so that's, what aspect of the team that they have, I don't really know. But Funko Games, I mean, despite doing incredibly well, they also lost a lot of money. They have, the article goes into the details a bit, but they have, what was it, 800 million, something like that? They had 805 million, down from 990, with a loss of $153 million. So, on the one hand, they sold lots of money. They didn't sell lots of money. On the one hand, they sold lots of product for a lot of money. On the other hand, they lost money while doing so, which is probably why they got acquired to some degree. So Goliath Games taking over Funko Games. So if you're interested in all those IP titles that Funko Games consistently puts out, and again, their market saturation is clearly there. $900 million or $800 million is a lot of money worth of board games. It's always fascinating to sometimes we live in our own little bubble where we're like, oh yeah, Ark Nova and Lost Winds of Arnak and Dune Imperium, and we forget sometimes that the mass market is the mass market. At the end of the day, Monopoly outsells every single game you've ever known and loved, and try sleeping at night with that information in your head. But either way, Funko Games, they are both doing well and not well at the same time, and now Goliath Games has taken them under their umbrella. Which brings us to our last piece of news before we dive into the rest of the video, and our last piece of news is the most important by far, and that is room and board Chris George, lovely, handsome man that he is, basically ran a board game Oscars over here. So, oops, I clicked on the wrong thing. Whoops, videos. If you click over here, if you check out the only board game awards you need to watch, there is an hour-long video, the 2023 Board Game Oscars, where he gives out awards to board games. It's really funny. Like, don't take my word for it. Genuinely, go watch that video. It's really funny. Give it like 6 minutes of your time, not an hour. Who has an hour? Give it 6 minutes of your time, and then when an hour's up and you're done, let me know, because it's really funny. I know I like Chris George, but that's not why I'm saying this. I'm saying this because it's really funny. Just watch the video. Unless you Mythic Games, then don't watch the video. Anyways, with that, let's go ahead and move into the topic of the week. I just realized that I don't have a topic of the week, which is fine. Sometimes I skip the topic of the week, but I forgot about the topic of the week. It's not that I don't have it, it's that I forgot that it exists. So, no topic of the week. We're going to say that the whole giveaway segment took up the topic of the week, and we're going to go straight to the week in review. Starting off with the games I played, as usual, just a handful, a sampling of the games I played this past week. We have Ancient Knowledge. I played Ancient Knowledge for the first time in probably a good 6 months. I played it on BGA, because they recently added it to Board Game Arena. I have learned two things from that experience. I still like Ancient Knowledge, and I don't like it on BGA quite as much. They do a great job tracking all the things you need to track, like genuinely as good as can be considering how many things are going on in that game. But I think I just like it in person better, being able to see, track, understand my own cards, your cards, what you took, what's on the table. So I like Ancient Knowledge though. They reminded me that I still do enjoy Ancient Knowledge from Yellow Games, Yellow whatever, IELLO. But anyways, that's Ancient Knowledge. So I still like it. We have So Clover, which is consistently a good time. I don't know, So Clover just continuously grows on me. Like to me, I very much consider those three games of Decrypto, Codenames, and So Clover, and just one, I guess, four games, as a quadrology of similar types of games with clever word puzzles, like more clever than what's interesting. Although I do think that Just One is easily my least favorite, and the reason for that is because Just One suffers from the thing that most classic party games do suffer. If you ever enjoyed Taboo, I don't know why we're talking about this now, I was talking about So Clover, but if you ever enjoyed Taboo, which I loved Taboo growing up, but what's the biggest problem with Taboo? That as you cycle around, as you play the game enough, you pull out that card and you say the same things. You've learned the patterns, you know what to do, you know what to say. Honestly, there's a similar-ish problem that you have in Monikers as well, which is you get locked into single problems at a time, and that means the game goes stale that as you encounter more and more of those things. Like, you're trying to figure out, oh, it's just one, the word is jewelry, how do we get you to say jewelry? What's the various things we can say around that word that get you to do that? And so someone else says a ring, and necklace, and shiny, and pretty, and you fall into patterns if you play the game enough. Versus Decrypto, Codenames, and So Clover don't have that problem because it's not about a singular word, it's about the combinations of words. And that changes everything. It changes the whole way you approach it, and it means the games not never get stale, but practically speaking, given the lengths of human time and involvement and the lengths of the game, it never gets stale. And so Clover is fascinating. I really enjoy it. More and more as time goes on, I find it creeps up to the Decrypto, Codenames level. Not there yet, but it's close. It's close. So Clover. Still like that one. We have Sleeping Gods, Distant Skies. I dove into that one for this week. I've started the process. I don't have enough information yet. I will say I like the core action system a little. It's a little more straightforward. The game has the same things you know and love about Sleeping Gods, but having the whole boat and navigation of just 5 actions a turn, I like that already. Combat, I'm only just starting to get involved with, so I don't have a firm answer on combat yet, but it does seem to have the same elements of combat, but being marginally better, so not necessarily better-ish to a large extent. I think where I am with it is probably, I need to play it more. I think I'm probably in the same spot that I was the first time around with the original Sleeping Gods, which is, I think this is a game that's good for one playthrough. For me, I think if you want to dive into the game, it's good for a lot of playthroughs. For me, I think it's good for one playthrough. I think it's got that one game, and then I'm going to be like, that's great. I'm happy I saw it, happy I played it. Keep in mind, this is initial instincts based off of maybe 2 hours of play, maybe. So, like, not a ton of experience in the game yet, but looking forward to diving into it more. I will, of course, have a review up when I get to it, when I have enough hours into it. But I don't know exactly when that might be. It might be in 2 weeks. It might be in 17 weeks. It could be anywhere in that range. Probably not more. Probably. And then lastly, we have Living Force, which you may notice is interesting on this table because I played it on Board Game Arena and I immediately went out and bought it, which I don't do that often. I really don't. But I really enjoyed Living Force. I thought it was a good I really liked it. It has a system that's you're going to find in I'm blanking on the name. It's from AEG. It's a card crafting system from John D. Clare, but it's not Dead Reckoning. Mystic Veil. It has a bit of a push your luck drawing system from Mystic Veil where you could bust if you keep drawing and have less of a turn, but the core game is just so streamlined, straightforward. I want the expansion. I want the expansion now, but I didn't get the expansion now. I'm going to play the base game first, but I really like Living Force, and yeah, I think it's a good game. Anyways, and I'll have a review on it at some point when I play it more than once on BGA. So that's that. And with that, we're going to dive into the week in review, starting off with this past Saturday. I reviewed Exoworld, oh my gosh, was it called Why am I blanking? I think it's called Exoworld. It's the space game. You're moving up tracks over it all. I didn't think it was that great. I was actually very excited once I read the rules, but the actual game felt a little lacking at the end of the day. Not a game for me, unfortunately. We have later on Saturday, I reviewed Eila and Something Shiny, which I both like and don't like at the same time. I thought Eila was very well done and a brilliant system. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. I was very disappointed in the ending, and I think the game is very light. But I do think it's a game that's really worth trying. If you can do so, I would hesitate to recommend buying, but I do think it's worth trying. I think it's very clever, and I want to see more using that system. Then we have on Sunday. We have the top 100 games of all time. Finished up that. Oh no, we're not done with top 100. There'll still be more videos. There's going to be a video. Well, there's another video later this week. There's more videos will be coming, but the top 100 itself is done. I think there are 3 more videos. There's why Gloomhaven wasn't in my top 100, which also went up this past week. There's the 20 games that didn't make my top 100, which are all the 4.5s that didn't make it. That's going up soon. And then we also have a top 100 analysis, an analysis breakdown, which I'm going to be doing as well. So 2 more videos past this week, I guess, that you'll still be seeing with top 100 before we move on to other greater, better things in our lives. But that's top 100. It finished. Lots of fun things. Vindication was my #1 game of all time. Final Girl was Meg's, and that's what we have is for the top 100. Then we have on Monday. We had month in review. We actually had 2 videos going up on Monday. First of all, we had a month in review, which usually is not Monday's video, but I was late Monday, so that's what we have. Later on Monday, we had a video for 2-back and not-to-back. It was a lighter 2-back and not-to-back than usual because crowdfunding is still mostly dead. Although that said, a bunch of things launched this past week. We have Conan, Master of the Universe, a whole bunch of things launching this past week. We'll talk more about those later. But anyways, next week. We'll talk more about them next week. But that was Monday's video, 2-back or not-to-back, going over a bunch of crowdfunding campaigns. On Tuesday, we had Halls of Hegra review. Halls of Hegra is an interesting one. I both gave it a 4 out of 5 and said it's also leaving my collection right away. You can watch the review for more of that. That is rare for me. It does happen, but it is rare. I actually just had someone... Well, I'll talk about it soon. I'll come back to this. I'm going to loop back soon. But anyways, that was Tuesday's video, Halls of Hegra. I think it's a really good game. I genuinely enjoy it, and I genuinely enjoy it despite being a theme and mechanics and types of things that I don't normally like. So that's part of the reason for the 4 out of 5. It's, I like the game despite it being not for me in many areas, and I think it's a really good game. Ultimately, I played through it, I'm happy with it, I think it's a good game, and I don't think I'm going to pick it over other games. But I have a hard time giving it less than a 4 out of 5. I think it's really, really well done. And I think a lot of people will make it rated even higher than that. This is one of those games where I'm giving it a 4 out of 5, and I think I'm going to get some flack from people who are like, why is it leaving your collection as a 4 out of 5? And again, we'll get to that soon. But then I have other people who will probably be like, why you didn't like that and you didn't like that. In fact, I already got some of that in comments, which tends to happen. And then later on Tuesday, we had a Healthy Heart Hospital, a bag building game that I thought was totally fine. Not amazing. 3 out of 5. Totally fine. I had fun with it. I don't need to play it again. And then lastly on Tuesday, we had a review for Chomp. I really like Chomp, despite myself. Despite myself is the wrong terminology. In general, when I like lighter games, I'm always a bit more hesitant because sometimes they don't hold up over time. Chomp does have an interesting scoring mechanism on the cards, where the cards are variable enough that there's always going to be a different little bit of a challenge as to what scoring things you combine. There are things I like about Chomp, there are things I don't like about it, but overall, I do enjoy and recommend Chomp. On Wednesday, we had games leaving the collection. This is a End of Year Purge. I did a purge of, end of 2023. I did a full purge. I got rid of 36 games, I think, although technically I saved 3. So if you watch that video, 3 games were saved, I believe. My daughter saved For Sale. She asked to play For Sale that week, and I was like, it's literally packed up in a box to go away. And she's like, please? And I said, well, yes, of course, obviously. So now For Sale is back on the shelf, and it will be played again. Then my son saved Ankh. He was like, no, I like the Egyptian game. So Ankh is still on the shelf. It's actually not up there. Ankh is still somewhere in the house, but Ankh is saved right now. And then I saved Empire's Age of Discovery, which I had a lot of people who are like, oh my gosh, you got rid of that game. And I'm like, no, I actually had second thoughts. It's, despite myself, I remember how much I enjoy the game, so I actually pulled it back after the video, which is unfortunate because I will probably still give it the stinky eye every time I look for games to leave my collection. I'll still give it the stinky eye, but for right now, that one's safe. But I did have somebody comment in the video, and I agree with them completely. They said, I've kind of picked up on the fact that more and more it seems like 4 out of 5s are not as safe for you anymore. Because previously I've always said the following, basically, which is, I'm going to start from well, let's give a quick rating summary. 2.5 or less, basically lots of problems. There's nuances to why it's one rating versus the other, but anything under 2.5, and I'm not wasting time on it. That's what it comes down to. A 3 out of 5 is a totally fine game, but I don't care if I never play it again, and I will never lose sleep over not playing it again. It's just a game that I had fun time with, but I just don't care. There's so many of those. 3.5 moves to the category where I'm like, but there were things that hooked me. There were things. Eila was really good as far as the way they have that past, present, future aspect. It was a really good system. There's parts of me that want to go back to it to see some of the items and stuff I missed and the pathways I missed. Ultimately, I'm not going to, but I am more tempted. Like it's that thought of I wish I had infinite time so I could play the 3.5s. That's usually the category they go in. If I had infinite times, I would try to play them. Versus if I had infinite time, I wouldn't even touch the 3s anyway because they're just 3s. 3.5 is that extra level. A 4 is a great game that is usually in my collection, or at least used to usually be in my collection. Now it's probably more 50-50, or maybe it's even, I don't know the numbers. I'll find out the numbers later, but 4 to 5 is like your really good game. And the problem is, my top 100 games of all time were already 5s and 4.5s. There were no 4s in my top 100 because there's too many 5s and 4.5s. The more time goes on, yes, ratings do slip over time. So my collection will never always eventually go to 5s because over time something gets played enough and I shift it down or it sees its flaws or something happens. Ratings do adjust. But ultimately, more and more, as I get to see more games, I think the number of great games I'm finding is bigger than the number of great games leaving my collection. And so to a certain extent, 4s are less safe than they used to be. And this is already true for certain categories. So if you were an area control game, 4s weren't good enough. If you were a midway to heavy Euro game, 4s weren't good enough. That was fairly consistent already because those are already games that are harder to table and you're operating with limited playtime. But in general, more and more, 4s are just not as guaranteed to be safe. That's what it comes down to. Are there 4s in my collection? Yes, there are plenty. 3.5s, there's very, very few. They do exist, but there's very, very few. And most of them are usually because of other people. You know, if my daughter wants 3.5, you can have it. Heck, if my daughter wants a 2.5, you can have it. But for me, it's usually not really the case. 3.5 is already like, it's very rare. Or if they're here, I expect them to leave. That's another possibility. Anyways, that was our giant purge video on Wednesday. On Thursday, we had a gameplay for Fate. Fate Defenders of Grinheim, I want to say. That was a tower defense-ish game, action selection, a little bit of deck building-ish, hand management stuff. Overall enjoyed that one, but you can check out the full video. That is a sponsored gameplay, just to be clear. Then later on Thursday, later on Thursday we had a live Q&A with myself and Meg around the top 100, just going through those, giving some general thoughts and conversation pieces, talking about the games that surprised each of us, getting to some conversations with each other and with the audience. And then lastly, on Thursday, we had an interview with Jamie Stegmaier about Wyrmspan, talking about Wyrmspan, how did it develop, why the designer, why the artist, why this way, why not crowdfunding, largest pre-order, similarities and differences from Wingspan, all those kinds of things, getting into that in case you want to see more information about that. And that brings us to Friday. Friday we had the video of why is Gloomhaven not in the top 100, but my city is. And the answer is because, well, that's the video. You can watch the video, and it's not going to make everyone happy, and not everyone's going to agree with that, and I understand that. It doesn't change the way that's the way I approach the top 100, and that's the way I approach the list, so ultimately it is what it is, but I understand people who don't like it, I understand people's complaints, and I think to me, I try to go into it in as much detail as possible in the video, trying to break down how I feel about it, but ultimately, it's just explaining. It's just explaining the way I think. You don't have to agree with it, but hopefully it gives more context, more caveats. I did think it was interesting that when the Dice Tower started their top 100, at the very beginning of the video, they're like, just to be clear, this is how we feel about games now. This is not taken into account all the time. They kind of immediately started off with like giving disclaimers as to how their top 100 works with like large caveats. And I wasn't sure if that's because they watched the pushback I got, or maybe they've gotten that pushback in the past and they always do that because they know that pushback exists. Trust me, I'll be giving more disclaimers next year. Even though I already do, I'll be giving even more disclaimers next year about like, this is how my top 100 works. It is from all time as of 2023. It is a constantly changing list, and that's intentional, and I personally want it that way. I understand someone else might not, but I do want it that way. Anyways, that is Friday's video, which brings us to today. Today we're going to have a few videos going up. We should have a review for Fantasy Realms, as well as a review for Santa Maria, which is an older game. That's been a review that I've been pushing off, and it should probably go up tomorrow. We'll find out. And then next week we have a few things going up. We're going to have the top 10 games of 2023 will be going up on the channel. Also, if you are a Patreon or Ko-Fi or YouTube member, if you're basically a member of the channel on any of the platforms, there'll be a behind-the-scenes 11 through 21 of 2023 as well, in case you want that. And then also I'll be ranking the 363... I don't remember the number. 300, large number. No, not 360. It's like 390. Like 391, something like that. I don't know. The video covers it. I'll be ranking the 390 or so new games to me that I played this past year. Well, not ranking them. Just giving like 3-second thoughts on each of them in a longer video discussion. And that's basically that, which brings us to the games on the table. Games on the table, as usual, these are the games I hope to be playing this week. We have Coimbra, which while doing my live recap of the top 100, I realized I have not played this since 2020, which is a shame. And yes, it was my number 16 game of all time, so I don't know how to answer that. But I love Coimbra. I hope to be playing this as soon as possible to remedy that problem. We have Living Force, which I mentioned already. It's an easy table game that I played on BGA, really liked, and I'm excited to dive into. We have Salt and Sea from End of Year Games, which looks intriguing, and End of Year Games generally doesn't let me down. Their games are either good or great, and that's pretty good reliability for me. And then lastly, we have Corpse of Discovery over here. Not Corpse, Core of Discovery. You gotta pronounce it Core. It's coming to you from Off the Page Games, who have done Mind Management and have done Harrow County, and this is their newest one. I've played this already. I really like it. I hope to be able to table it this week, but we will see. And that is basically it. That is your week in review. Until next time, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have an excellent weekend. And as always, I hope you have a good one. And movie review time. So, movie reviews here. I'll be covering 4 movies, as usual, with light spoilers, hopefully not a lot. I'll be covering James Bond's Spyfall, as well as Alien, and then Jobs, and then also, for rounding it out, Steve Jobs, which, yes, those are 2 different movies. Anyways, Alien. Let's start with Alien over here. I haven't watched Alien in a long time, and I forgot how much it's like Nemesis. I already knew Nemesis is Alien. Like the board game Nemesis, I knew it was Alien. That wasn't a surprise to me. But it's been so long since I watched Alien, I forgot how much Nemesis is Alien. I forgot like how much it's clearly the exact same game. Yeah, either way, I think Alien was a good movie that holds up to a degree. I find watching older movies is always tricky for me. I think the oldest one of this type or genre category that holds up the best for me is probably The Thing. The Thing really holds up. Versus Alien, I liked. I thought it was good. I'm going to be watching the next few of them slowly to catch up, to go through them all, just because why not? It's one of those movies that, to a certain extent, the age and technology does take a little bit away from the experience for me. A little bit. It gives a cheesy effect to it, which has a charm and a nostalgia. But I think that I enjoyed it. I watched the whole thing, which is more than I can say for a lot of movies sometimes. But ultimately, I liked Alien. But the plot's basically pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. There's people on a ship, and there's an alien, and it tries to kill everyone. There you go. I didn't really spoil much for you. That's generally just to watch the trailer, you'll see that much. Then again, trailers do sometimes spoil the whole thing for you. So there is that. But I liked Alien. We have Spyfall. I have not really caught up to I think Spyfall, I started with Spyfall a long time ago, and I just never finished it, so I finally wanted to finish Spyfall so I can actually watch the rest of the Daniel Craig James Bond's movies before, who is the next James Bond anyway? I've heard so many like names at different points, I have no clue anymore. But anyways, I like Daniel Craig as James Bond, I like James Bond in general, and I enjoyed watching Spyfall-ish. I say enjoy-ish because I really had to push myself to actually finish it for whatever reason. The one before, the Casino Royale, I think I like that more. I don't know. I'm going to watch the rest of them, slowly catch up. I think James Bond is something that is very hit or miss for me as far as whether I feel it. Mission Impossible is more my jam. It's more my speed. James Bond's kind of like, I like it-ish. I did... Again, I think it's a good movie. I think Javier Bardem did a fantastic job in his acting. He generally does. I think overall the characters across the board, the plot was... I don't know. The plot felt a little... It felt a little contrived, I think. Maybe that was an issue with it. Ultimately, I still enjoyed it, but it was one that I had to like push myself to finish. I started it like 6 years ago or something like that, so that's some context there. And then we have Jobs and Steve Jobs. Why did I start watching these videos? Because I got a short on my phone from a segment from Steve Jobs. I'm pretty sure the Steve Jobs is the, oh my gosh, the actor from, what's his name? He's the actor from, he plays Magneto in the X-Men First Class, but I can't remember his name. He's actually in one of the Alien movies. Michael Fassbender. Michael Fassbender as Steve Jobs. I think that one is Steve Jobs. And then the other one, with the other actor, Ashton Kutcher, is Jobs. I think. Hopefully. Anyways, assuming that's true, there's Jobs and the Steve Jobs. And I remember watching them a while ago. I watched both these already. I'm watching them again. Jobs follows Ashton Kutcher. Oh, I started watching them because I saw a short of Michael Fassbender. I was like, oh, such a good scene. Such a good scene. So I wanted to watch the whole movie. They got me. But anyways, Michael Fassbender. Oh, no. Jobs. Jobs follows Ashton Kutcher from kind of the beginning through to a degree of his growth. And then it kind of just cuts off and leaves. I thought it did a good job. I don't know if I felt that immersiveness, and you don't think of Ashton Kutcher as Jaws, but he has the look, and he does a pretty good job. I think he did an overall good job of presenting it, and I like the supporting cast in Jobs a lot more than I do in Steve Jobs. But it gives a kind of good progression of his life, and I enjoy it. It's a good movie. Steve Jobs is a fascinating movie because it doesn't really follow a linear progression. It just follows Steve Jobs at different points with Michael Fassbender. It follows him at different points right before large press briefings in his life. So it's like four different press briefings with all the background and the emotional weight and the people around him. And it just covers it from like 4 impactful moments, but also manages to tell a story, which is already well done, but it has some really, really great scenes. Like solid scenes that I thought were absolutely amazingly well done. I think that you get more of a narrative arc from Jobs, but Steve Jobs, I think, has more of an emotional hook to like just the way they communicate, the way Michael Fassbender controls the stage. I think Ashton Kutcher looks the part better, but Michael Fassbender just controls the position. He comes across so well to the point that after watching those videos, I actually literally went on YouTube and watched a few like press conferences from Steve Jobs just to get a sense of like the real man, because it's been a long time since I've seen him in anything of any kind because he's not with us anymore. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a very good movie. It's fascinating. I mean, the degree of sway that Steve Jobs has had over the world. To think about the fact that like one day at a press conference he pulled out this iPod, and that's the only way we listen to music. And then one day at a press conference, they made the iPhone. I remember hearing about the iPhone, and I remember people being like, "Do you get the new Touch iPad?" Because at the time they had the Touch iPod, whatever it is, and then they had the iPhone. What's the difference? Well, one has a cell phone and internet. The other just looks like the same. And I remember people like having those conversations, and will touchscreens work, and to what extent, and how good are them? And then it completely revolutionized the way we approach technology. It wasn't the first smartphone. It wasn't, but it was by far the best at its time. It revolutionized the way smartphones were created. And smartphones are so key to our lives. It's a little shocking the impact some of these people have had on our lives and the positions they've played in the industry. It's shocking. It's like, it is astounding to think of the impact that someone like Steve Jobs has had. And he was not a perfect person. The general narrative seems to be he was a bit of an a-hole at times, but possibly a brilliant a-hole, possibly a socially dysfunctional a-hole. Again, people are flawed. People are almost always flawed. Just the larger they are and the more in our face, sometimes the more we see their flaws, which is a complicated conversation for another day. But ultimately, I do recommend both Jobs and Steve Jobs as great movies. Anyways, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.